Hello and welcome to the video. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Kaya.
And we are from Riding the Turbulent River. And you are joining us on a 20-minute training. It's going to be about 20 minutes, we hope.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. And the training is on mediation, so mediating peace for our loved ones and lighting the way back to reconnection.
Yes. And we're going to take you through one of the posters we have, because we've got some beautiful art posters to represent the different modules that we have in the work we've created.
So this is one of the weeks, and we're going to, the class itself is actually a 90-minute class, but we're just going to give you the abbreviated version so you can get a really good feel for it and take away enough that you can really start putting it into practice.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to take you through the poster, and this is the poster, but we'll give you a, we'll bring it up on screen properly when we do the editing so that you can see this.
Yes.
So we're just going to talk through it here for you. So with all of the Riding the Turbulent River work, it starts with connection to yourself and coming back into a place of self-connection, presence and a groundedness so that you take that out into all your interactions. So the last video that we shot, which you should have seen, is the foundation practice. And that we assume that that kind of goes before any of these interactions that we're doing. So, if you haven't seen the foundation video, you might want to check it out. And the link will probably be below this video.
Yes.
But let's assume that you have seen the foundation video, so you have a bit of a feel for where we're coming from. And then this poster also starts, on top of foundation, we start from what is my intention. And we have a little core part at the base of the poster, which is your internal work before you move into interaction with another person. And so that's where the process starts.
And that's like, that's at the base of all of our posters. It's to bring you back to self-awareness and self-connection so that you have conscious choice. Because this is about breaking the patterns that you want to get out of in your family. So it starts with that self-connection that provides conscious choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So at the base of the poster, we start in the centre with the reminder that when you're walking into a situation of conflict, that you're acting as a mediator and an interpreter. And that just helps you set your mindset for what role you're going to be providing and to keep that in mind as you're moving through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, and that's like that's the anchor of, that's right, my intention is to be a mediator, to be an interpreter, and that's that I'm not going to enter into this conflict and be a part of it. I'm lighting the way for reconnection. And the interpreter is like, because that is your intention, you're a bit out of the conflict, you're an observer.
A little bit removed.
Yeah, a loving observer. So you can see things that your children and your partner might not be able to see, and if it's appropriate you can light that for them. You can interpret for themselves what their blind spots might be. And then it's also interpreting, like for your children, especially for younger children, they might not be able to express themselves adequately, so you can be that interpreter to help bring more reconnection back.
Yeah. So as you move through this process, it's not dogma. It's not a this. You have to use your intuition a lot with this. But with your younger children, there will be interpretation that you need to help them with. Their ability to express their emotional needs and wants in the moment will be, and especially in a moment of conflict, will be probably less than that of an adult. So you do have that interpretation role. Okay, and then the intention. Now, your intention is a personal intention that you have for that moment. And we give you an intention within the poster, which is lighting the way back to reconnection for the members in the conflict. But if that intention doesn't really inspire you, then work with something that does. But it's important to keep in mind what your role is here. Often as mothers, a lot of mothers that we work with, they never want to experience conflict in their house. They just don't want it to exist. And when it does, they want to squash it as fast as possible, or smother it, or put it out, or resolve it as quickly as possible. And that is not actually the point of mediation. You do want to get to the resolution, but jumping in as quickly as you can and offering a solution and like doing the whole thing from just your perspective and going, I know what will solve this problem, this is what we need to do, everyone do it now, to move past the conflict, you run the risk of submerging the conflict. And what we mean by that is that the conflict just becomes internalized within members of the family. So they didn't actually resolve the conflict between each other. It just sort of got squashed down and stuff put on top of it.
It's just like a temporary fix so that you can go about your day.
Yeah, and that won't have the cumulative effect that we really want in re-establishing proper mediation within our family.
Yeah.
So it's important that you're really conscious that you're going to be with this process and let everyone feel heard and let it take the time that it's going to take. And early on in that process, it might be a bit messy and it might take a long time. But you're gifting your family with a new skill set, so that's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So your intention is something to come back to remember.
All the time. So the first thing is that's really important as a mediator, that we ask you to get in tune with yourself in before you open your mouth or before you even contemplate stepping into the situation, is quickly, it doesn't have to take a long time, this process, but connect to empathy for everyone in the conflict, okay? And it's really important that everyone you connect to empathy. Not just the person that you feel is the victim in the situation. You know, sometimes you're rushing in with an assumption that one person is the victim and the other person has started the conflict or is the perpetrator, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you try and leave that mindset behind. You can't walk in with a bias and be a really...
like the... just the support person for one.
You're trying to go for impartial, and not just intellectually but emotionally, which is why we ask you to connect to empathy to every single member in the conflict, and that includes your partner if they're involved in this. Often we find it easy to check in with where our children are at, but we don't necessarily do that with our partners as well. So everyone involved in the conflict, just connect to your empathy. And if you watch the foundation video, you know that the very first level of that, or the practice that we gave you, was to ask what might they be feeling and what might they be needing. So quickly do that for each of the people involved in the situation so that you're really connected to each member of the situation.
Yes, and it's really about feeling for them, feeling them. Like, wow, yeah, I really get that that's what is probably up for them, that's probably what they're feeling, that's what they're needing, and I'm feeling that. I have empathy for them.
So the next thing is to just do a quick check and acknowledge what we call Mama Bear.
Yes.
So Mama Bear exists probably in every mother that I've ever met, but probably a universal thing. And Mama Bear is that old instinctual part of us, that desire to protect our children, you know, and it can be very, very strong in mothers. It can be a really intense feeling. And sometimes it can kind of engulf us and wash up over us, and that need to rush in and protect can actually override our ability to even read the situation.
Yeah, she kind of takes over. And the power of acknowledging her, so just like acknowledging she's there, helps to relax her and also helps you to have control and choice over how she comes in, like, because she's healthy and she's wanted, but you actually have choice about how she's being expressed when you acknowledge her.
Yeah. And typically the Mama Bear, she doesn't tend to have a lot of grey on the continuum. She's kind of a very black or white. And so it's important that we be able to interpret for her some of the nuances of the situation, because often she just leaps straight to, she's either not roaring at you, or she's really roaring at you. It's often not a big in-between state. So acknowledge Mama Bear, okay, because you can't mediate effectively if Mama Bear is controlling the situation and you're trying to protect. It's really challenging to try and walk into the situation that way.
Yes.
And the next petal that we talk about is assuming best intent. Now, most of the people watching this video have probably heard of this. It's a common conscious, gentle parenting practice, and assume best intent has been heard many times. We're asking you not just to intellectually go, oh yes, assume best intent. We're asking that you consciously make the effort to really assume that everyone in the situation is trying to get their needs or their wants met. They're not trying to be a bully. They're not trying to upset people. They're not trying to be mean. They're just trying to get their needs and wants met.
Yeah, and it's remembering what you know within, that they're all truly good in all moments. They're all doing what they can do.
And they're working with the best they can in that moment.
That's a powerful spiritual practice for me, really integrating those words. For myself and everyone, assuming best intent of myself and of my children, of everyone around me.
Absolutely. And along with best intent also comes a little bit of an energetic concept, but that we're holding the belief, we're holding the container or the space that the best intent is there, and that these people can sort this out, that there is a solution and that we will find it. And when you hold that energetic space, you're creating a space for them to step into. And that's actually a really important part of mediation.
That is.
Okay? So that's
sometimes that can be
all that's needed. Yeah, sometimes that can seriously be all that's needed. So don't dismiss how important that step is.
Yes.
And the last step in the base?
Yes, I can share that. The last step in the base is the question, do I need to intervene? And this is a really important question to ask, because in some situations your physical presence or your words aren't actually needed, and the best you can do is to continue to hold that belief, hold that vision, and just support them to work it out themselves. And this is a great question to ask also, to reassess what your intentions might be, because sometimes it can seem like, yes, I really need to step in, but it is coming from your mama bear, or it is coming from the doubt that they can work it out, or the assumption that you know best.
And often this comes up when your partner is in conflict with your children. So that's something to be aware of. Just check. And we're not saying that you just dip out of the situation completely. You can stay consciously aware of what's going on and tuned into what's going on without actually stepping in physically and intervening. So that we're just asking that you take that pause and check in and see.
And trust your answer.
So that's the base, and that sets you up into a place where you can walk into the situation as a healthy, balanced interpreter and mediator of the situation, and you can really then, from that grounded space, move up the rest of this poster and hopefully create a really peaceful outcome with everyone involved.
Yes.
So as we move up the poster, we get to the two base leaves that sit up the stem.
Yeah.
Okay. And the first one of those leads on from some of the base that we talked about, and it's set your energy. And this is really powerful that you consider doing this. If you were to run into the situation with a, what's going on? Oh my gosh, quick, we've got to stop this, and who's yelling, and that kind of frantic energy, you're going to take that energy and just put it, it's like kind of just putting a wood on the fire, or oil on the fire, is that the same?
Fuel on the fire.
Fuel on the fire, yeah. You're just going to ramp it up. Whereas if you go in with that energy, that calm, grounded, it's okay, we can work this out, there's a solution, and everything is okay.
Yeah.
That energy that you walk in with, everyone else can sort of suck that up. Okay, your energy is really contagious, and what you walk into, you will put it into the mix. So be really conscious of the energy that you're setting as you walk in as the mediator.
Yeah, and ways to do that are to take a breath and just to hold your intention.
And the best intent, of course. There's
Yes.
some best intent. On the other side, the other leaf on the other side is talking about safe words and actions and your opening phrase. And we're not going to spend a lot of time here in this short video. We do spend a lot more time in the class talking about it. But basically, the safe word is a word that your family has, and it's something to cultivate out of the moment. So my family, we have a kind of a more universal safe word, which is stop. Not no. So we have stop. My children have a word that they use between themselves, and they use pause. So if one goes pause, the other one does pause. And it's important that this word be one word that's not abused or used out of context or used a lot, and is held sacred, so that there is a word that is the safe word that creates the safety and the stopping.
And that can avoid a lot of conflict in itself.
And that actually also often links to the do I need to intervene. So if you're hearing one of your children using the safe word, stop, 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 or clearly whatever the word is, and it's not being honoured, then that is a really good time to definitely step up and intervene and start advocating, I'm hearing this word and I'm hearing that it's not being honoured.
It's a clear signal that they need your help.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that goes on with the opening phrase, doesn't it?
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, the opening phrase is just being aware of how the way that you come into the situation, the things that you say, how they can affect it. And this is particularly important with your partner, because there can be some defences up if you're coming in and like, oh, is there a big problem? Can I help fix it? That might be something that he reacts to.
Especially if you have an I'll solve it attitude.
Yes.
Or I'll show him how it's done in the gentle, conscious parenting world.
Yeah. So it's thinking about what you can say to actually be heard and for them to feel safe and
supported,
yeah. And so that you're actually going to create more connection.
And often that physical touch too. So you can't necessarily be sitting next to everyone in the situation, but just contemplating that sort of, I'm here, I'm on your, I'm here supporting everyone, and that I'm not taking sides.
Yes.
It's kind of the feeling you want to get across, so that you can walk into that situation with everyone open to your presence.
And this step actually bounces back and forth with the do I need to intervene, especially if it's with your partner, because you actually want to check in with him or them if they actually want you to intervene. And it's important to check in with yourself, but to honour what they need as well. That has a lot of impact on how effective you're going to be in the whole mediation process.
So a lot of this, you can see it's kind of an organic process. We're giving it to you as a bit of an outline, but in reality it sort of swirls around, because there's often the need to check our mama bear in that situation too.
Yes.
So it kind of all keeps moving around. And the other thing that we wanted to mention briefly was action. So sometimes in a situation where there is physical conflict happening, usually between siblings.
People could get physically hurt.
Yeah. And then there is the need to step in and stop the physical action and separate them enough distance so that no one is actually physically hurt. You do need to create safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you do that, be conscious that if you've grabbed the person who's perhaps initiating the physical violence at that time, and you're kind of holding them back, try to do so in a loving way. Just keep your energy really grounded. but also make sure that your energy is also very focused on the other member of the situation who might have actually been the one who was being hit or whatever was happening, so that they don't feel like you've just rushed to one side. Just try to remember that you're wanting to stay neutral and create a safe space.
Yeah, you're being there for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And focus as much as you can actually, while you're physically holding one of them, try to focus as much as you can on the victim. Don't like that term very much, but on the person who was being hurt. And not so much on lecturing. This isn't a time for lecturing.
It won't be heard.
No. In a moment of conflict, there are no teachable moments, okay? So let go of the lectures and the telling them off and that sort of thing. Just try and create safety. That's your goal at this point.
Yeah, I just want to say, because there is still a bit to go, that we're giving you a lot of information and a lot of points. And the power in this process and these posters is that just the more you sit with them and the more you feel into them, the parts that you need to hear in the moment will come up for you. So just trust that this is a lot at the moment, but you will remember what you need to remember when the conflict comes.
Absolutely. So the bit that is most relevant for you will be the bit that you remember. You don't need to remember everything that we're saying in this bit.
Yeah. Like, for example, for me, I realised that in retrospect, I had sat with assumed best intent, and I had felt that in my body, and I could see how that affected all my relationships with my children dramatically, just from really embodying and honouring that one sentence.
You could take any one of the bits of this poster and just focus on that as a practice, and it would create a shift.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move up the poster. This is the main bulb of the poster, and it's really a circular process. This is about holding the space for everyone to feel heard. This is your goal at this point, and there is the interpreter role here as well, particularly if you've got young ones. But this is the time when everyone has a turn to have their voice heard by everyone in the situation, and that everyone hear each other. This is the goal of this section. And there's a lot of ways you can do it and use your intuition, but we give you a couple questions that can be really helpful if you need something in the moment to work with. And the questions are:
how do you feel?
How do you feel? What do you want? And why? Now, they don't go in any order in particular, and often the younger your children or the higher the conflict, it is easier to access the what do you want and why before you get to the how do you feel. So you can just feel out which way works better for the people involved. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a sense of what do they want, what is it that they're after, why do they want that, and that can provide a lot of alternative solutions. So it's a good thing to know why they were after what they're after and what they're feeling. And that is so everyone can connect to empathy for each other.
And this, it's really important to remember that this is a really important practice on its own. Sometimes what they mostly need and want is to be heard, to be really heard. So it's also reminding everyone that right now we're not actually saying, we're not ever really saying that anything's right or wrong, but we're not judging what people are wanting and what people are feeling. We're hearing everybody, and when everybody has that sense of, I'm heard, I'm understood, I have my voice in this, there's like a shift in energy, and that's when we move on to the brainstorming solutions. But this is just a being heard space.
Absolutely. And if you can foster, and you might not get it the first couple times, but if you can foster a sense of curiosity in this part, for everyone to just be a bit curious about, where's the other person in the situation? What's going on for them?
And how can I relate to that?
Yeah, so work towards that sort of feeling and that everyone feel heard. And sometimes the feeling heard is actually the end.
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes you don't need to keep going because
Oh,
it dissolves at that point, because what was going on in the conflict was someone was not feeling heard.
Yeah, I've had times when my children just kind of get up and get on with their whatever they're doing, because it's like, yeah, I'm heard now, and
that's all that was needed.
They're done with the whole thing.
Yeah. So, and important to note that you can't really move forwards into brainstorming solutions or shifting the energy until you've gone through this space.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very hard to brainstorm as a group, probably even singularly, if you don't feel heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yes.
really important, this step. Now the next part of the process, just before we move into the brainstorming, is just a rechecking of our own internal space here, because now we've been involved in the situation, and it's important that we remain conscious of where we're at in the process. There are things that can trigger us. There are family patterns that come up. We may have moved into, oh, we always go here, or here we are again, or we're never going to reach a peaceful solution. These sorts of...
Or why do they always do that? Yes.
So those sorts of things. This is time to just get conscious and bring yourself back to presence. And if you need to, return to foundation, which is possible. But we give you 2 questions to ask here to just check in with yourself. You don't have to do both. Maybe only one jumps out, or maybe neither jumps out. But we give you these, so you can...
Oh yeah, well, the first is, where's my childhood in this? And I like asking myself this question, because it actually, it brings humour in, because it makes me look at how whether I'm actually just being another one of the children in the whole conflict, and how that part of me is just being dragged in, the part of me that has unresolved issues. Because sometimes when I can zoom out and look, it's like, wow, I was being just as in the ruckus as they were. So it brings me back to conscious choice about how I'm wanting to be a part of the situation.
The other thing that comes up in this is sometimes at this point it becomes clear when you zoom out a little bit that you're actually repeating the patterns of one of your parents.
Oh yeah.
In this bit. You're like, oh my God, I sound like my mother. You know, that can come out there. So that's also involved in this question. It's just getting conscious again, like, ooh, what am I bringing into the situation from my past here?
Yes. And then we have the question that actually is a deepening in interpretation, and that's what's the story under the words? It's because you are being the mediator, you're holding space for everybody, and also because you're the mother, you can sometimes tune into whether there is a whole other story going on for someone or everyone, and whether the conflict isn't actually about what they say it's about on the surface, but it might be about something else. So just bringing that perspective in, and then this whole being heard and what are you feeling and what do you want can go to a deeper level, and there can be more healing and more understanding and more reconnection there.
And this is an especially important question if you've got young children involved, because often their ability to verbally express that is not doesn't always fall into alignment with what's really going on for them. So it's important to just check in and reconnect to that interpretation role.
Yes. Yeah.
And at this point we're up to the very top of the poster, up to the top flower, and at this point you're ready to move into the transformation out of conflict. And whether that's a resolution or whether that's just a shifting of energy, there's a few things that can happen here. And we have some petals that just give you some choices or options to explore.
Yeah, and this is well, yeah, it's about resolution or transformation. So it's the level above. It's, yes, we're all heard. So now,
what do we want to do about
it? We're visioning, like we're co-creating together
a new solution. Absolutely. So the very first thing that we encourage people to be really conscious of at this point is to be patient. Okay, so often we want to rush solutions, and often we're seeing solutions inside that we think will be the wins for everyone, and we're keen to get there.
Yes.
Okay, it's important to be really patient and allow this process to unfold and allow for everyone to feel heard here. So again, your job is to make sure that everyone is feeling heard.
Yeah, and the term "be patient" just reminds me that in this part of this conflict resolution, this mediation, we're all co-creating together. We're like creating a solution for everyone. So it's a creative process. So it's more about the journey than the destination. And if I give the space for that creation, that co-creation to happen, then the solutions that might never have come but that are the most fulfilling for everybody, they have the space to bubble up. They have the space to be created. Otherwise they wouldn't be.
Yeah. And so don't necessarily be scared of silence.
Yeah.
And just wait for someone to start the process sometimes. You know, you don't always have to be the one jumping in. Sometimes you do need to sort of help facilitate it, but just to be conscious not to jump in and to be patient enough to let it happen. So at this point you're offering up, okay, now that everyone feels heard, what do people see as a solution? What's a way forward? What could we do? And you're brainstorming here, and you're asking that everyone throw in ideas. And there's no judgment of ideas at this point. And that's an important one in brainstorming, that any idea is valid. And sometimes the more creative and the wilder the idea, it might not be an idea that is necessarily feasible, but it leads to the ultimate solution.
Yeah, it's a doorway to some more, because it's like, oh yeah, that's right, anything's possible. It opens that up for everybody. So it's important to remind everybody that this is a process of getting everything out, and we don't need to point out that something won't work, or we don't need to dismiss someone's idea or say that it won't work for us until the end.
And sometimes we're giving you this in quite a long, drawn-out format, and that would work for a much more involved, complex situation. Should point out that in a smaller moment of conflict, this isn't a long, it really depends on the situation. This can be done in like a minute. It really just depends on the situation and the people involved. The more people involved, the longer it does usually take.
And I get that some mothers, probably a lot of mothers, would often be thinking, oh yeah, this is too much, like I won't have time, it'll be in like a tense moment when we have to get out the door to get somewhere. And I really acknowledge that that's often the case, but sometimes it's that panic and that fear that there won't be enough time that actually hinders the process and makes it not possible to move.
It slows it down, and it often ramps up the conflict as well, because you're bringing that energy to the situation of rush.
Yeah.
And I think it's important too to remember that if you are starting new at this sort of practice, that it can take a time at the beginning, and that it can look a bit messy compared to just dictating a solution.
But it's actually really enjoyable.
It is. And as your family shifts, they more naturally move to this, and they move to this model even without you being involved over time. So remember that this is a growing process. This is part of growth and a journey. Yeah. So there's a couple other petals here just to check, and we've talked about, does everyone feel heard? The other thing is keep checking on yourself, just a mental thing. Do I need to speak? Do I need to speak now? Because often we don't. Often we need to hold the space and let the other people who are involved in the situation directly doing the speaking at this point, with you maybe just interpreting occasionally. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and something that I often do is actually I write. Like
the solutions.
I just get a piece of paper and pen out and I write everyone's wild and wacky and not wild and wacky solutions down.
And the last thing that we want to bring up that's in the petal is, can I use playfulness and humour to shift the energy? Now, this is only if it's appropriate, and this is an intuitive thing. You totally have to feel into it in the moment. But often we have seen with our children and in different negotiation situations that the children naturally move energy a lot through turning it into a game. At this point in the process, someone cracks a joke and everyone laughs, or
someone's solution is pretty funny.
Yeah, and then you can watch the whole solution, the whole need for a solution disappear and dissolve.
Yeah, even like in some ways where you go, like, how did that happen? Like,
Yeah. So Kaya and I have had that happen when we've been mediating for all of our children combined together. And we've had situations, actually, when we were practicing, when we were creating this process and we were trying to test out some of the stuff in practice really consciously. And we had a few situations where we would just be like, oh, it's finished.
That's right. And
apparently.
And sometimes we don't see that straight away because we're like, oh, we've got to
reach the solution.
But it's like, hang on, the children are playing, they're not in
They've
conflict
moved past
anymore.
it, yeah. And so often the way that they've moved past it is they've let the energy move through them. They've felt heard, which is the key for a lot of it. And then they just release the remaining energy through laughter or through some form of playfulness. And it shifts, and the whole situation shifts, and then it's kind of gone. And the solution is a moot point by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is our mediation poster.
Yeah.
So that was a quick version of our mediation class, and obviously we give you a ton of practices and we go much deeper in a lot of the points. But that is certainly the process that would give you tons of information to work through. And as an extra gift, we're also giving you the poster that goes with this. And you can pop that up anywhere around your house. Bathroom doors always a good one. And you don't need to memorise this whole process, and you don't need to memorise the poster. Just allow what needs to jump out at you, jump out. There will be something that will resonate, and that is what is perfect for you to bring into the family at that point. And it will continue to change. You know, it might once you've got one down, something else will leap out at you from the poster. So we really encourage you to just pop it up somewhere and use it as a working document to create a practice, just a simple practice that you can bring into the family.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it for this training video. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you feel inspired to reach out to us in any way, be that our Facebook page or the comments under this video, or if it's a more private thing and you don't want to share it, we're happy for you to email us.
Yeah, anytime.
All welcome. We would love to hear from you, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Much love.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.